So I got another visit from my salesman, still trying to sell me something that I don't really want. Though I can't blame them for trying because, that's what they're in business for, is to sell their stuff. But he didn't try nearly as hard this time because he didn't need to, because it was pretty clear I wasn't going to buy. But we got to talk about religion again, unsurprisingly. And unsurprisingly, he decided to double down. Really going gung-ho on the I'm right and you don't really understand. And again, he's a super nice guy. And I pretty much understand where he's coming from. And Christians, especially, I don't get this from Judaism. I don't get this from Islam. Islam just like, you're wrong and you're going to hell. Judaism is, it's our club and you don't belong. But Christians, they want you to belong. The problem is that they want you to belong to their specific little understanding of. Because that's what Christians do. They have their own specific understanding of who Jesus is and what God is and what it's all about. They found the answers and they understand it, but they can't really convey it. They just know it. That's why they call it faith. Always they're saying that's why they call it faith. And I understand why they call it faith, because they have nothing to back it up with. So they call it faith. That's just saying that's why they call it faith is not a selling point. That's just showing how weak your argument or how weak your position is. But he did say to me after we had a conversation that that he has not so much renewed, but that it has only strengthened his resolve that Christianity is correct. Because they're all about trying to get you to admit atheism is somehow wrong. That atheism doesn't work. That atheism doesn't have a worldview. That atheism doesn't have morality. That, they always want to point out what atheism doesn't have. And I keep pointing out that atheism isn't about that. Atheism is simply, you got a God that you believe in, and an atheist says, yeah, unless you can show me that God is real, I'm not going to believe your story that God is real because it's just your imaginary friend. That's all atheism is. Atheism isn't about a worldview. Most atheists have the same worldview as most theists. I mean, I would argue that most Christians are good people, and most Christians have a worldview that is to help others and to make the world a better place. That's my worldview. I want to help others and make the world a better place. That is a worldview. I mean, that's it. Atheism, not believing that there's a God, really has nothing to do with a worldview. But it's funny how people will double down. And they're like, by telling me that God is not real, it only encourages me to believe that God is real. And all I'm trying to do is trying to get people to question why they believe. I present all these things. It's like, why do you believe these things? And their response is always, because I know it's true. Well, why do you know it's true? Because I feel it in my heart. How is feeling it in your heart any kind of evidence or reason to believe that it's true? Because I just know. I mean, you can't really argue with that. I mean, you can't argue with people going, prove my God isn't real. I can't prove your God isn't real. I also can't prove that Bigfoot isn't real. I can't prove that UFOs aren't real. I can't prove that fairies and trolls and giants and gremlins and any number of things. I cannot prove that they're real. In fact, I had a conversation with someone online, and I listed all. He's like, how do you know the supernatural isn't real? Supernatural is just a word that they made up for things that they don't understand. Like, well, here's a list of things that we consider to be supernatural. Being, fairies and gremlins and trolls and, gnomes and whatnot. We consider those to be supernatural. Supernatural is the word that we use to describe them. And the person replies that, oh, well, I don't believe in those things. Well, yeah. So add your God to that list. And I don't believe in any of them either. Just because, just because you believe that there's something is real doesn't make it real. Unless you have something to show that it's real. And saying, oh, DNA is evidence that God is real. It's not. It's not evidence of anything other than, the evolutionary process. And, oh, it's too complicated. I'm like, it's not too complicated. Just because you don't understand it doesn't make it too complicated. So it baffles me how people double down. And I always want to share things with them. I want to share the talks of people like Seth Andrews and Aaron Ra and Matt Dillahunty. And I suggest that they watch these three people. And I really like those three people. The Unholy Trinity, as they're, I guess, lovingly called. But they're very intelligent people. And they have, Seth and Matthew, especially Matt, have been very, very deeply entrenched in religion. So much so that I think Matthew was going to be a priest, and Seth was a big, he was a radio personality, and that was his life. This was their life. Life was centered around their religion. And they gave it up because they could no longer believe it. And it cost them a lot, especially Seth. Seth lost the relationship he has with his parents because he cannot believe what they believe any longer. I guess Matthew worked it out. Aaron has a hard time with some of his family because they're they're Mormon, and Mormon is cuckoo. But these are smart guys. They didn't give up on God because they were smart. They gave up on God because they were able to see past the reasons people believed in God. And they have a lot to say that's, I don't even want to say convincing, because atheists don't try to convince theists that God isn't real. They try to get them to question themselves, because that's what they did. They questioned themselves. Why do I believe these things? Why do I think these things are true? And they questioned it, and they realized, I don't have a good reason to believe these things. And they stopped believing them. And they gave up on the idea that God was real. And that's all most atheists, that's all I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to convince anyone that God is not real. I'm only trying to get people to question why they believe. Because always I'm asking, why do you believe these things? And they always completely avoid the question because they don't want to question why they believe it. It's always the stock answer of, because I believe it in my heart, which makes no sense at all. Believe it in my heart? I don't even know what that means. I don't argue with theists because I'm trying to convince them of something. I argue with them that I don't want them to promote what they believe blindly because they believe it blindly. Why do they want to get other people to believe it blindly other than to join their club and make their beliefs seem more legitimate? Because if you're the only person who believes a crazy thing, people call you crazy. But if you're one of a billion people that believes a crazy thing, you're religious. I know somebody said that before. I'm stealing it, but it's true. It's true because religion promotes itself because they want more people to believe these crazy things, so it legitimizes the crazy things they believe. And a lot of the people know it's crazy. I mean, if you look at a lot of preachers who are asking for money, they know the bullshit is bullshit. But they know people want to believe it. And they're willing to hand over their money to be convinced that it's real. Prosperity preaching, those are the guys. They are horrible, horrible people. They are the scum of the earth. They are the ones that make me want to kill. No, I take that back. I don't want to kill anybody. But to kill God. That's another thing. Somebody pointed out to me that atheists are all about killing God. We don't think God is real. We can't kill God. God doesn't exist in our understanding. So we can't kill something that we don't think exists. That's just silly. And we're not promoting Satanism because Satanism is the same BS. The Satanic Church, however, and they don't really worship Satan, it's a Satanic Church. They promote rational thinking and free thought and being a good person. If any church is worthy of being promoted, it's this Satanic Church, because they're the most reasonable ones. Anyways, I'm Tom, your friendly neighborhood atheist, and that's another tirade about the nice guy who came to my house and tried to convince me that God is real, and I wasn't buying that either. I'll catch you next time. Bye.